What's up guys, and welcome back to the Pokemon DataDex and the first episode covering Generation 7 Pokemon, the Alolan forms and all of that jazz. So hopefully you're excited for this. What I'm going to be doing to start the series off is covering the start to final evolution, so Decidueye, Incineroar and Primarina over the course of this weekend, and then you guys, we will choose the episodes from then on out. How often the episodes will be, possibly every other day, every 3 days, however often I decide to get it up and do it. So the episode after the starters will be decided by you, and it's going to be one of Lycanroc's forms, either the midday form or the midnight form. So feel free to vote right now. Just drop down in the comments and type midday form or midnight form, depending on which form you want to see covered. I will cover both of them eventually, but it's just whichever one gets covered first. So be sure to do that now, and of course hit the like button if you're really hyped about DataDex returning for Generation 7. But for now, let's get on and start covering Decidueye. Decidueye is number 724 in the National Pokédex and is a grass ghost type, as well as being the arrow quill Pokemon, relating to the fact that it can obviously shoot arrows from its bow-like wings. It stands at 5 foot 3 inches or 1.6 meters tall and weighs 80.7 pounds or 36.6 kilograms. In terms of breeding and egg groups, it's in the flying egg group, which makes sense even though it's not really a flying type, and in terms of gender ratio, it's the same as all the other starters in its mostly male, 87.5%, but 12.5% female sometimes. Evolution wise, like all of the starters for Generation 7, Rowlet will evolve into Dartrix starting at level 17, and then Dartrix will further evolve into Decidueye starting at level 34. Looking at Decidueye's base stats, we can see it's sort of designed as the mixed attacker of the starters for this generation. You can see its highest stat is attack at 107, but it also has fairly high special attack at 100, and then its special defense is next one down at 100 as well. It's pretty good. Like most of the Pokemon in Generation 7, it's pretty slow though, with 70 base speed, which is its lowest stat, with having fairly low health points and defense as well, so it's not the bulkiest Pokemon, but it could be built either way really. And then of course we have the abilities for Decidueye finally. We have Overgrow, which is the basic ability for all grass type starters, and we have its hidden ability, which of course is probably not available for a while, so you have to hold off on using it. So any sets that use Long Reach later on, you have to put Overgrow in for the time being. But we have Long Reach, which means that any moves it uses will not make contact with the foe, so any moves that would have, for example Leaf Blade, will not make contact because of Long Reach. This allows you to avoid things like Rocky Helmet, so you won't take damage from that, same with Iron Barbs, and also stuff like Poison Points, you won't get poisoned at all, so you're safe using some moves like that, and of course moves like Spiky Shield for example, where you would take damage if you were to make contact. Taking a look into Decidueye's typing, being a grass ghost, is very similar to Trevenant and Pumpkaboo, as well as Denmise, one of the new Pokemon. It resists 4 types: grass, water, electric and ground. It's weak to however 5 types, which is fire, flying, ghost, ice and dark. It's immune to 2 types though, so that is a bonus, of course normal and fighting thanks to its part ghost type, and then it takes neutral from the other 7 types left, which are poison, rock, bug, psychic, dragon, steel and fairy. So overall it's not an amazingly bad type, but it could be better. As I've said, 5 weaknesses there: fire, flying, ghost, ice, dark, and they're fairly common types as well. The 4 resistances is alright, okay, and the 2 immunities, okay, it's just sort of general immunities, indeed. If we then swiftly move on to what moves that Decidueye can learn, as you'll see I've done a slight update on terms of the moves. We're going to be showing the power of the moves as well as the accuracy of some of the moves if it's not 100%, just to help sort of visualise how powerful and strong some moves are. So first up, Decidueye will learn its signature move, Spirit Shackle, when it evolves, so it's just whatever level, 34 or higher. It's a base 80 power ghost type move, and it has an added effect that it prevents the opponent from switching out, so it's actually a really good move, especially in some of the sets you'll see later on. So it's pretty damn good. You'll definitely want to run it on basically any Decidueye set, and of course if you have a Deciduum Z, it will allow you access to Decidueye's signature Z move, which is Sinister Arrow Raid. Of course we'll look at that when we get to the sets. So moving on, next we have at level 38 it learns Sucker Punch. Now Sucker Punch has been lowered in power from the last generation. In Generation 6 and before it was a base power of 80, now it's only a base power of 70, so there's a slight nerf to it, but it's still a very good move to think about running on Decidueye because of course it has a low speed stat, so Sucker Punch can definitely be used to, Sucker Punch your way into a victory if you, predict the attack of course. There's Dark type, so it gives you a bit of coverage, but generally looking at the types you're sort of strong against or weak to, it's, apart from Ghost, other Ghost types, you have Ghost type move for that anyway, so it's really not a huge sort of, you don't need it, but it can be useful in some situations. So then we have at level 44, Leaf Blade. Now this is if you're running a grass type move, probably one you want to run. There are others available, but Leaf Blade seems to be the best all around grass type move. It's a base power of 90, so it's pretty powerful physical move, etc. We're only looking at physical moves for Decidueye here because you could run special sets, but generally we're going to be looking at physical ones here. Then at level 49 it can learn Feather Dance, which is a status move that sharply lowers the enemy's attack. Now of course, this initially you think, well, why the hell would you run that? But of course you'll see when we get onto the sets how it can be used. Then another flying type move at level 55 is Brave Bird. Now of course it's not part flying type, so it doesn't get the stab boost, but it's still a very powerful move and gives you some extra coverage as well. Being a base 120, recoil is a factor, so it's just something to bear in mind there. The last level up move we have is Nasty Plot, which is learned at level 60. Again, you're thinking, well, we have no special moves, we're not learning any special moves at all. Nasty Plot sharply raises special attack. Why the hell would we want to run this? Well, again, you will see as we get along to the sets. And then moving on to the TMs, we have first TM19 Roost. It does get Roost, even though it's not a flying type, but it makes sense because it is an owl. And it definitely, it's a move you want to think about running, especially if you're comboing with Brave Bird, because you can Brave Bird, get some recoil, and then Roost up the damage. So it's pretty good all around, and it's one of the healing moves available to you. You do have Synthesis as well, which is another option, but Synthesis, of course, is affected by the weather, so if you happen to end up in the rain, for example, you might not be healing as much as if you had Roost. Then moving on, at TM75 we have Swords Dance, so basically an equivalent to Nasty Plot, except Swords Dance sharply raises your physical attack. This is a useful one for you because of course you are a physical attacker, so it's definitely one you would make sense running. One final TM is U-Turn at TM89, 70 base power, so it's a pretty strong move anyway, and of course it helps you be a bit of a pivot as well, getting some damage on your way out. And in terms of typing as well, it does help you hit some dark types because of course Bug Dark, it works pretty well there, so it can be good in terms of that. Then we have two more moves which are egg moves. The first of these is Baton Pass, which you can combo with Nasty Plot and Swords Dance for a very good effective set, as you'll see in a minute. And then finally we have Defog as another egg move. Of course it's not an amazingly useful move, but it can clear out the battlefield and it can be useful to have just another option on your team to use Defog. So if we then move on to the competitive sets, we have 3 sets to look at here. The first of these is going to be sort of the Baton Pass set. The second one is going to be sort of a full out offensive set, but not quite full out. And the third one is going to be a set using its signature Z crystal. So starting off our sort of defensive set almost, we have in terms of moves Spirit Shackle, Baton Pass, Swords Dance or Nasty Plot, and then finally Defog, Feather Dance or Roost. So it's a few options there we'll talk for in a minute. The ability is Long Reach, which generally you want to carry over Overgrow because of course it's going to protect you from stuff like Rocky Helmet and Iron Barbs, whereas Overgrow is only going to be helpful when you're at low health. The nature here is going to be Impish or Careful. It's up to you which one you run. Impish is going to increase your physical defense and lower your special attack, whereas Careful is going to increase your special defense and lower your special attack. So here it's really which one whether you want to go full specially defensive or whether you want to sort of balance it out a bit or across both defenses there. The held item could be a leftover since obviously it's a fairly tanky set just to sort of get some health points back, or you could run a Colbur Berry, which is going to protect you from a super effective dark type attack. So for example Knockoff and Pursuit and stuff like that could really do some decent damage to you because you're ghost typing, so it's helpful to have this berry as an option just to allow you to survive one hit if you're switching out, for example, or a different sort of situation there. EV wise, we're going to put 252 in health points and defense, so basically max those out and then put the final few in speed, even though speed's not our main thing, so you could also put them in special defense or even physical attack if you really wanted to, but generally the last stat doesn't matter too much. Just health points and defense to give you a bit of bulk and also bring your physical defense stat up as high as you can. So let's talk through the moveset. First up we have Spirit Shackle. Now the idea behind this set is because Spirit Shackle prevents the opponent from switching out, you can switch into a sort of a favoured matchup for yourself, so against a water type for example, and then use Spirit Shackle to force them in and they can't switch out of battle without dying, so all they can do is try and set up on you, but you're a grass type so you sort of wall them. And then the idea behind that is you can then Swords Dance or Nasty Plot depending on which one you've done. You can get some boosts and then you can Baton Pass on to bring a new Pokemon in, and the choice behind that as well is you can Spirit Shackle the opponent and then you know exactly what Pokemon will be there when you Baton Pass out, because of course the tricky thing with Baton Pass sometimes is okay, you can get some boosts and then Baton Pass to your really strong attacker that's quite frail, but the trouble is then that gives the opponent a free turn to hit this Pokemon you're bringing in, of course it might take them out. Whereas if you use Spirit Shackle, you know the exact Pokemon you're going to be switching in on, which gives you a bit of an advantage. So as I mentioned, Bat and Pass is how you use that, and then Swords Dance and Nasty Plot, again, it's up to you. Of course, if you know you're going to be trying to Bat and Pass onto a physical attacker, you want to run Swords Dance. If you're trying to go on a special attacker, of course, Nasty Plot is your choice there. The final slot could be, Nasty Plot itself if you really wanted to run both, or it could be Defog, as I mentioned, to clear out the battlefield as an extra one on your team if you haven't got a Rapid Spinner. Feather Dance is another possibility to lower the physical attack of any opponents so they can't do any damage to you while you're setting up, or Roost, because of course in some cases you will get hit by an attack and might have to roost up before you can Bat and Pass out if you're thinking of coming back in later on as well. So really we've talked about everything else as well. Generally, I've talked about how you use that set as well. You switch in on a favourable matchup, you Spirit Shackle them in. Sometimes they will switch out before you Spirit Shackle, so you might have to try it a couple times. But even then, if they switch in a Pokemon, you Spirit Shackle them and then they're stuck there. If it's favourable for you, you can stay in. If not, you might want to just switch out and reset for later on. Once you've got a favourable matchup and you Spirit Shackle them in, you can Swords Dance or Nasty Plot or Feather Dance if you want to stay on there for a bit longer. Then eventually you Bat and Pass to whatever Pokemon you want to Bat and Pass to, and then you can hopefully use that Pokemon to sweep through the rest of the team. That's the idea behind that set there. Moving on though, we'll go to, it's basically an all-out attacking set. Move-wise, we have Leaf Blade, Spirit Shackle, Brave Bird, and then U-Turn or Sucker Punch. The ability is again Long Reach. Nature this time is an Adamant one or a Jolly one depending on what you're going for, and the held item could be an Assault Vest since we have all 4 attacking moves, or it could be a Life Orb, just to give you a general boost across the board. EV wise, we have maximum attack and also maximum speed. You don't necessarily go for maximum speed here, you go for maximum defense just to give you a bit more bulk because of course you're not the fastest to begin with, but really it depends on what your nature you're going for as well, I suppose. And then the rest in physical defense just to boost it up, so of course you could switch speed and defense over depending on what you're going for. So Leaf Blade is your Grass Stab, that's pretty simple there. Spirit Shackle is your Ghost Stab, of course it can also be used to keep Pokemon in, so you can do that and then you can just smack them down basically while they're stuck in battle. Then we have Brave Bird, which is not a stab of course, but it's an alternative in case you get a Pokemon switches in, you've got nothing against them, so Brave Bird can just wipe them off the face of the earth basically. And then U-Turn or Sucker Punch, the choice here is whether you want to go for a pivot strategy with U-Turn to allow you to come in and out, or whether you want Sucker Punch there as the the backup, or for an instance where they're on very low health but they could take you out, so you can Sucker Punch them and get them before they get you basically. Long Reach is talked about. Adamant or Jolly is up to you, so whether you go for attack or speed. Generally I'd say go for attack and build your EVs slightly more defensive, but you could also go for Jolly and then put all your EVs into speed, so you're as fast as you can be, and then you try and outspeed as many things as you can. In terms of the held item, Assault Vest or Life Orb, really is up to you. Assault Vest is going to make you more tanky, so it could be more useful in those Adamant sets. Or Life Orb might be better for the speed sets where you're faster, so you are going to be able to get more hits off without actually having to take more hits yourself. If you are running Life Orb, also gives you the opportunity to run Roost in the last slot if you want to go for a not saying more defensive set, but a set that can last longer rather than just going in and all out attack and then being taken out itself. How would you want to use this set? Well, it's just a general attacking set really. You switch in, use a move or two. If it's favourable for you and you can get that matchup, Spirit Shackle if you can, because then of course you're set until you've taken that Pokemon out basically. Or, if you get switched in, so you switch in and then they send a fire type in, probably not want to stay in there, so you can then U-turn yourself out if you're confident you're faster than the opponent, or you can just switch out normally and come back in at a later time when you are better suited for the matchup. Generally, that's that set there, so move on to the last set, which of course, as I mentioned, is using its signature Z move and Z Crystal. The moveset here is going to be Swords Dance, Leaf Blade, Spirit Shackle, and then Sucker Punch or Roost. The ability is Long Reach, nature is Adamant or Jolly, held item as I mentioned is a Decidueye Z, and the EVs are 252 in health points and defense, and then the rest just in speed, so maximum health points defense and a few more in speed there. So we have Swords Dance to boost our attack, as you might want to do. We have Leaf Blade, which is our Grass Stab. Spirit Shackle is our Ghost Stab, and of course you need to have, if you're using the Decidueye Z, so you can have access to Sinister Arrow Raid. And then Sucker Punch or Roost, really is a choice here, whether Sucker Punch is there for the situations where you can Swords Dance up, you're +2, maybe you get attacked down to half health, but then you have a +2 Sucker Punch to hit the opponent with before they can get you, so it might be useful in that situation. Or Roost is there if you want to go for a bit more of a I'm going to try and stay alive and roost when I can sort of situation there. Whether you go for an Adamant or a Jolly nature, again it's sort of based on your own personal preferences and of course what EVs you put in, so of course if you're going for Jolly you might want to put all your eggs in the speed basket, or if you're going for adamant, you can go and put some defense in, because of course you want to be able to last some hits so you can get your powerful hits in. As we've seen, the Decidueye Z is the held item, so you can of course have access to Sinister Arrow Raid. Bear in mind this means that your Z move will be on Decidueye, which means of course it won't be able to be used by any other Pokemon if of course you're planning, and it means if your Decidueye gets wiped out really quickly, you lose your Z move capability. Now of course it's very early into the Sun and Moon competitive game, so no one really knows how useful Z crystals and Z moves will be, whether or not they'll be sort of needed, so you and your opponent get one guaranteed wipeout with the Z move, or whether they'll be really easily eaten up by just some sort of clever switching and stuff like that. So of course it could end up being that Z crystals are not a thing ever, so you don't really have to worry about them too much. Or it could be that they're quite powerful and quite popular, so a set like this might not be the most favoured, because of course you might want to use the Z crystal on another Pokemon that's even more powerful than Decidueye, but Sinister Arrow Raid is a pretty powerful move, so it's definitely a suitable choice for Decidueye, especially if you get a Swords Dance up beforehand, to do at least. How would you use this set? Well, you'd switch in. If you can, use Swords Dance. If not, if you want to just go straight for it, you can just go for your Z move. If you're confident you can survive a hit and or outspeed. And of course, remember, Spirit Shackle keeps the opponent in, so if you switch in on a favourable matchup, you might as well Spirit Shackle initially, just to see if they will stay in. If they do, boom, you're good. You can just take that Pokemon out. You might not even have to use your Z move, but if they switch out to another Pokemon, it means you can switch out the turn after, and you've gotten some free damage there from this Ghost type move on Spirit Shackle, unless of course they switch Normal type in which case that's fair game. You could maybe even stay in, because it's just a Normal type, so just bear in mind as well, of course, because your Z move will be Ghost type, you might want to watch out in case they've got any normal types on their team, because that would not be the best to waste your Z move and have it just completely be nullified by a normal type Pokemon. So that's the last set for Decidueye there. As I mentioned, we're very early into the competitive game for these games, so of course things will be changing around for the next few weeks at least, so sets will be tried out, sets will be failing, sets will be created, so do let me know if you use any of these sets and have some good sort of luck with them or good success with them. And if you have any other suggestions for Decidueye sets or moves to use, do let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, don't forget to vote for the episode after the starters, which will be one of Lycanroc's forms, either midday or midnight. Let me know down below which one you'll see, but for now, this is going to be it for today, so I should be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.